Coach, you have been doing this for longer than some of the younger strength coaches have been alive. Thank you for coming on the show and educating me and our listeners.
Well, thank you. I hadn't done the timeline like that, but sounds like I've been doing it for a while. So I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, man. I did a little bit of research on you as I do with all the guests, and yeah, any of the young coaches out there, aspiring coaches, like they have not been around the block as long as you have. Like your background's impressive. Like I wouldn't minimize that at all. Like it's pretty fascinating. One of the things that I want to dive in first is the hotel restaurant, like that degree with nutrition, the health education, the sports psychology, because like all of that, like that plays into being a strength coach of like accommodation and making sure logistics are there and teaching people with the education piece and the sports psychology. And you had the mental performance stuff at Arkansas. Like that's super interesting to me and I think applicable to our young coaches.
No, I appreciate you doing the research on that and creating some good dialogue here. For a while, I was embarrassed by my bachelor's degree, hotel and restaurant management. And I'll tell you why. I went to a pretty good high school. It was a technical high school called Tech High School in Detroit, Michigan. And everyone there had to pick curriculums. So you graduated with a curriculum, and mine was engineering focused. So my goal was to be an engineer, and I did not understand the work demands or the time demands of being a college student athlete and having to compete with students in the class. So here you're putting all of your effort. I put all of my efforts, a lot of effort into being the best athlete I could because I wanted to be successful there. I thought being successful as a student was a given. Like I'm here at college, like I'm going to be successful. But what I didn't know is I would have to compete in the classroom just as much as I had to compete on the field. And then I still wanted to enjoy like college and have some friends and go out with my teammates. All three of those things could not coexist at the level that I expected them to. First of all, you're in class with some of the brightest, smartest, and they're staying up to 1, 2, 3 in the morning to study. Well, I'm not going to stay up to 1, 2, 3 in the morning when I got to get up at 5 for a workout. So already at a disadvantage. And it didn't take me very long to figure out, okay, I'm not set up to have success in this way. I cut back on the social life, so then college wasn't as fun. By that time, I was far behind in my classes, and I didn't know that your cumulative GA was just as important as the classes that you wanted to major in, like engineering. So I didn't think I'm pretty sure math is pretty important, but I don't see why English and everything else is that important. So I'm not going to put as much time and effort into it. I'm going to put all my time and effort into what I want to do and be, and that's engineering. Well, 1 year, like, no, that's not going to work for you. You're not going to get into your pre-engineering. You're not going to get into the engineering school. It's like, oh, I didn't know that I wasn't in the engineering school. I thought it was. So I had to compete to actually, oh, all right, too late. Well, why don't you going over to the business school, try to figure something out? Well, by that time, they're like, all right, the classes, those engineering classes don't count over here. Like, okay. Um, and the 5-hour math class, we don't need all of that. And like, okay, so I'm behind the 8 ball. So for 2 years, I'm trying to catch up and compete with business school students. I can't catch up. So now I'm 3 years in to school with no path, no direction, dreams of being engineering student, engineer, shattered, gone. Lots of my friends are still engineers today. Mine, gone. Well, business, I mean, you got a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit. Let's figure that out. Gone. After 3 years, I get a call from my coach and the academic person during the summer before my fourth year in college, and they say, you're going to have to go over to the ag school to remain eligible, or you're going to be ineligible for college. It's like, how did how did this happen? How did I go from being what I thought was a pretty good student that had a good base of a good foundation of education to having this conversation that I might be ineligible and possibility of losing a scholarship? Like, I was totally confused. So went over to the ag school. It's like, yeah, I need to enroll in class to be remain eligible. And they were like, we're so happy to have you. We're like, you're what? It's like, we can figure out a plan for you. Would you like for us to put a plan together for you right now to show you how fast you can graduate? I was like, you can do that? They said, if you have time. They put together a plan and said, you can graduate in 2 years. And is there anything that interests you over here? I said, well, hotel and restaurant management. I like food. I like nutrition. I like management. I like business. I like all these different areas that make this thing work. They said, sounds good. Best 2 years of college I had.
That's awesome.
And I learned so much about the front office, the back office, the restaurant, the parking, the housekeeping, the night auditor. You have to make a lot of different departments work well for what? The customer experience. Like, if they have a bad experience at the front desk or the parking lot, most likely they're going to have a bad experience. They're never going to come back. So you learn how to make a lot of departments work together for the benefit of the customer experience so that you can provide the level of value. So for me, I eventually learned that, wow, that background, if I apply it to coaching, if I look at each one of my staff members as being directors of their departments, and I get all of these areas to work together, then I can have a positive impact on the customer experience, which is the student athlete or the head coach. Then we will gain more market share from a business standpoint, or we will get the best recruits. So you can translate it. So eventually I learned, I know this is a long answer, but eventually that led me, I had a short professional career in the NFL, and then that led me back to college working in the weight room as a graduate assistant, where then I went to get my master's degree in education with an emphasis in curriculum and instruction. I eventually got my first full-time job, and I realized, okay, I got a degree in hotel and restaurant management. I've got a degree in health education and promotion, emphasis on curriculum and instruction. Exercise science, exercise physiology, kinesiology. No, just real life experience in the weight room with awesome strength and conditioning coaches. So I realized, okay, well, if I want to have a successful business, what am I going to do? I'm going to find the best and the brightest people and make sure they are a part of this organization or my department.
You need CEUs to keep your certification as a strength and conditioning coach. At Strength Coach Network, both of our long form education courses come with CEUs to the NSCA, CSCCA, ASCA, and the NCSF. Click the link down below for more information about how our courses can help you keep your certification and you're able to learn from some of the biggest and brightest names in strength and conditioning.
And that's what I did. I looked for the best, the brightest people that were smarter than me. And people say that a lot of times. I really meant it. Jana Heitmeyer, Kaz Kazadi, Brian Mann were the first graduate assistants that we hired at the University of Missouri. I put that graduate assistant class up against any other GA class. Jana Heitmeyer was accepted to Stanford Medical School out of college. And we hired her as a strength and conditioning GA. She's currently director of sports nutrition at University of Georgia. Kaz Kazadi, his career, Brian Mann, I think everyone knows. So those are our GAs. So you can imagine what the full-time staff were like. From the Scott Birds and Antoine Floyds and Josh Stoners, the list keeps going of Andrew Paul, Todor Pandoff, David Dietz. Like, these were people that I wanted the best and brightest, and everybody on staff was either going back to school or getting a Gary Gray or some sort of certification, whether it was Andrew Paul going to school, PT school, getting us into cadaver labs. Like, I had to become this learner, and I had to learn from my staff all of the things that I didn't go to school for that you need to go to school for now, your exercise science and physiology and kinesia, all of those courses that you need to be a strength and conditioning coach. I didn't have that foundation. So I was reading books, I was watching videos, I was a sponge, I was learning from my assistants. The weight room was a classroom. My office was basically a place for me to learn and grow. And I know you asked a short question, and I've gone into a lot of detail, but I was embarrassed initially with that hotel and restaurant management degree, and I quickly realized, no, there's a lot of value to that education that I received. I just left to learn how to apply it in the setting that I wanted to work. So yeah, there you go, Justin.
That makes a ton of sense. And I think any of our listeners out there can 100% apply it because you learned how to make different departments that are not otherwise connected work together. Why would the kitchen care what the parking attendant did? Well, if the parking attendant did their job poorly, now the person's in a bad mood. Maybe that steak was or wasn't where it should have been, and now the complaint does or doesn't happen. Like it's all interconnected, and you explained it there perfectly.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's very much true for our student athletes. Whether we're talking about recruiting, if they have a bad experience during the recruiting trip, if they have a bad experience during too many bad experiences during their freshman year, that first semester, because they're going to have some.
Yeah.
But the idea is, how do we get all of these areas to work together? So that's how I see my job now. So I'm the associate AD, senior associate AD for health and performance at the University of Louisville. Well, the different departments I oversee. So I have team physicians. So I'm the healthcare administrator. So the team physicians report up through this role that I have. Sports medicine, sports science, sports nutrition, sports performance. So it's the weight rooms, mental health, and mental performance. So it's 50 plus. By the time you include team physicians, it's 70 people. That's just full time. That's not including part time interns, student assistants. So all of those people, getting all of those departments to work together that reported up to different administrators prior to me being in this role, prior to this role being created, presents some challenges. How do you get these people who have different backgrounds to understand what the customer experience should be? Whether it's the head coach, the fan, the student athlete, how do you get them to, and they didn't necessarily go to school to learn how to work with other professions. Like, you learn how to do your profession, and you're taught it in a vacuum in most cases. So for me, looking at how do we get on the same page, how do we have a vision, a mission, core values, how is that communicated very often, frequently, redundantly, and having attention to detail, but also knowing that it's about people. So you have different types of cohesion. So now I'm gonna bring in the sports psych part of my background. And so if you want team cohesion, then you need task cohesion and social cohesion. So for how that works is, if you and I want to get something done, in order for us to be the best, to produce the best product, we need to operate as a team. But different people on the team may be more attracted to that mission because of the social cohesion, the friendships, the camaraderie. Some are more attracted to that mission because of the task. Like, we have an objective, we've got to go get it. When you put those people together and help them to appreciate each other, Like, hey, we may have to spend a few minutes just checking on how everyone's weekend was before we start this meeting. And then we'll jump into the agenda. You know, for some people, so you have to help the people that don't care about how someone else's weekend was appreciate that. Like, hey, just relax for a second. Let us get through this. You know, we're going to find out how everybody's weekend was. And then we're going to get to the agenda. And then you also have to balance the people that would rather spend half the meeting talking about the weekend and then the last half of talking about the agenda. You got to balance that.
Mm.
And so that for me, that's something that is challenging, but it's something that excites me. Something I think of myself as a leader, and what does it take to lead people from different backgrounds, different places in their careers. If you can get that to happen with your staff, you have a better chance of getting that to happen with the teams that we're coaching.
Mm.
And if we understand those different dynamics, if we want the best team, then we're going to help those athletes on that team get to know each other better, social cohesion. And then we have a task. Today we've got lifting, running, practice. Here's the practice plan. Here's your lifting that you need to get through. And at the end, we'll become closer because we know each other better and we got the work done. So that's how I've been able to kind of blend all of my background and the education to be the best leader I could be.
So the thing I wrote down here was like, who do you go to fill your cup up when you've got 70 people that are reporting to you? Like, you're in a world where, me, okay, if I'm a strength and conditioning coach, I can go talk to you because you've worked in a weight room, but like being in your specific role, and I think Coach Kaz was going to ask you this question at the CSCCA, and maybe it did get asked and I just forgot it, but he talked about like, admin and leading people, like how, first of all, where do you go to get filled up? So then that way you can pour in and give people these resources. Cause some strength coaches might be like, wait a minute, coach, you got like primary care physicians reporting to you. Like, how difficult is that? Um, just start there, I guess. Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr has been my online software platform choice since 2019. Been using it at Towson, using it at Goldfinch, and use it with my online remote clients. You can learn more about them in the link down below. TeamBuildr is also part owner in the Plyomat, which will allow you to get quick, valid, and reliable jump data, jump height, ground contact time, and reactive strength index in just seconds. They are part owner of Plyomat, so you can check them out in the link down below as well.
Well, it's probably not that much different. If you've been in the role of a director of strength conditioning, head strength conditioning coach, especially working with large teams, you have a lot of individuals and different groups of individuals. Your O line, your D line, if you're football, or if you're track, you got your jumpers, your throwers, you got your cross country. So it's the same principles. Uh, you have to communicate well. All right. Now that's pouring out. How do you go and get information? How do you fill your bucket is what you're asking. It's the same way that I had to do it as a strength and conditioning coach. I've got mentors. I'm fortunate to have both parents still in my life, but man, my dad used to work midnights as a truck driver, and which worked really well for me to be able to call him at 4:30 in the morning on my way to the weight room. We had some really good 5-10 minute conversations, uh, and so for me that was important. I've always kept older people um, close to me. I've always tried to get closer to those people that are 20 years older, 30 years older, and just be in their presence. I think even younger, when my dad was around his friends, I was supposed to be there and not talk, not move, not if I need to go to the restroom, that was about it, and come back and sit down. Like from a young age, I remember having the patience and the discipline to do that. There was no interrupting him or his friends. Like, you don't do that. And I think that helps me in certain situations. It hurts me probably in others. But I've got a group of friends from former teammates from high school all the way through college, and next level. And man, spiritually, I get on a call that goes 6 days a week. So I'll get on there, whether it's 5 or 10 minutes in the morning. I get my workouts done early in the morning. My eating and discipline is I do a pretty good job with that. I keep a couple of hobbies, so I'm a avid hunter, and I love race motorcycles, so drag racing. So I've got a couple of hobbies that keep me balanced, that pulls me away from work, and ultimately, number one is my family, and me being able to receive what I need from them while I'm giving them what they need. So I would say it's holistic. It's trying to balance a lot of things and just kind of living in the moment at the same time.
You said you're still training. I definitely think I've seen a video of you like deadlifting 7 plates or something like in the archives from a meet where the staff at Iowa went down and did something in Missouri. Is that still going on? Like the gripping and ripping or what?
Oh, I did get some deadlifts in this morning, and yeah, it was the weights were heavy this morning.
Did
They
you not
keep
put the
getting heavier.
did you not take the magnet off? Because sometimes I forget to take the magnet off and then the damn plates just don't move.
They don't move. Somebody turned the magnet up on me, and it's like, oh man, I thought I was just going to kind of go down and not really think about it, and I went to grip it, and I was like, hold on, I better make sure everything is tight. This is how things go bad, and yeah, so I try to take care of myself, and just I think being a coach for so long and being held to a standard by my athletes, like, you know, hey coach, you're telling us to put fruits and vegetables on our plates. We're looking at your plate, and I think after doing that for a long time, I tried to keep most of those good habits going.
No, that makes a ton of sense. For any of our strength coaches that are maybe in that transition phase from full time in the weight room to admin, what is your recommendation to them to be able to handle that transition properly?
What I did is I talked to people that had done it before. Um, that was really helpful to me to every time, especially at a conference. If I saw a strength coach that had an assistant AD title or associate AD title, and I would go and have a conversation with them and exchange contact information. For me, that was really helpful. It is not easy, no matter what you think, uh, how difficult anyone's job is, or if your job's harder than their job. If you're working in collegiate athletics, there's not an easy job around here in college athletics. If you have an easy job, then you don't have a job. So your job is going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. I think one of the most challenging aspects for me is putting to the side all of the experiences that I had and knowing what those experiences mean today. Like, I know what a lot of those experiences meant in the past, but in this role, just because I know how to put together a training plan doesn't mean I can walk into a head coach's office and say, Coach, what are you doing? Like, why are you training that way? They don't care about my past, uh, that I used to do that. Um, they have their challenges and they want to know how I can help them with their challenges. And if it's something that maybe it was in my wheelhouse in the past and today it isn't, maybe right now I need to figure out from a facility standpoint how I can help them acquire certain equipment or logistics in their facility, or maybe a staffing. Maybe they're having some challenges with their health and performance staff, and I've got to help them with that. Um, that's more of my role today. And if we thought that or think that administration doesn't understand what we do as strength and conditioning professionals, I just tell you, it's in your title. Like, they know what you do. Strength and conditioning. How you do it? No, they don't know. Why you do it? They pretty much know why. You are really probably in it to help athletes. You've got a passion for it in the weight room, and you love to compete. Most likely they know why you're doing it. You want to make a difference. I mean, we all pretty much got the same 90% of the same story of why we do it. So we shouldn't get frustrated when they don't know everything, all the details. I can tell you, I spend most of my time trying to share what that profession is when it comes to strength conditioning and the other areas that I help to represent. And it is there's not enough time. There's not enough time. I believe it would take 10 years for just the people that I work with to understand what each other does. And it's really close. I think we could take 10 years trying to figure out what doctors do, the sports scientists, the nutritionists, the sports medicine, strength conditioning, mental health, mental performance. We could take 10 years with the people who are actually working with each other to try to learn to be in a place where we can say, okay, we know we got a high level of competency with what someone else does in their profession. So how are we going to expect um, someone that spends most of their time, like me now, in an office on your phone or computer or in a meeting to totally understand how you do your job? There's not enough time. So let's not get frustrated with that. Let's not get fixated on that. Let's just build better relationships, be better communicators, be more understanding, be more patient, be more persistent.
Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Hawkin Dynamics. I've had Hawkin Dynamics for multiple years, dating back to my time at Towson, and still utilize them here at Goldfinch when I'm training athletes in Iowa. Hawkin Dynamics makes it simple to be able to get input to find out what's going on underneath the hood with your athletes. Whether it's lower body assessment, upper body assessments, you want reliable data to find out how the athlete is putting force into the ground so you can be able to accurately return an athlete from an injury, and you can also find out how the athlete is producing force to check how your training is working. Check out Hawkin Dynamics in the link down below.
And understand that we're wearing the same logo here. We're all on the same team. Uh, I don't need to get up at 4:30 in the morning anymore to understand what everyone does. But I do need to listen and be empathetic and try to help them and understand what their challenges are.
No, that makes sense. Like there was a saying that the team Cairo that I had at Towson, he's like, we have to learn to play in the sandbox well, and if we don't know how to play in the sandbox well, like because you said some, I guess you would say, contradictory words of be patient and persistent. What's a really good way to be patient and persistent without bothering that person or trying to obtain information from an athletic trainer or a physical therapist that you're working with or a sport coach, where it's, hey, I care and I want to do what's right, but I don't want to come across as annoying or like,
Yeah,
because that's a fine line to walk.
that's a great question. I learned that whatever I wanted to get done in an hour, it may take a day in administration. Whatever I wanted to get done in a day, it may take a week. Whatever I wanted to get done in a week, it might take a month. What I want to get done in a month might take a year. And you learn to add smaller steps in between those major markers that, those benchmarks along the way. You learn to make progress, but you have to be more incremental. You may have to break those big decisions and steps down to smaller steps and smaller decisions. If I wanted to change the workout and the weather was bad or I didn't like what I was doing, a strength and conditioning coach, took about 5 minutes to have a quick staff meeting.
Yep.
And if I want to do that now, I have to consider all of the ramifications, all of the steps, all of the people. And I'll give you something I used from someone I learned. She was in the mental health space, and I was just having a conversation with her, and she challenged me with something that was going on with my staff. And I said, well, hey, doc, just let me know what to do. I'll fix it. Like, no ego here. Like, let me know what I need to do. And she was like, Pat, that's really great and all. And I understand what you want to do. But you're used to driving a speedboat, and this is more like driving a barge. And you want to make quick turns and pivot. And that's not going to happen when you're driving a barge. And I was like, wow. She said, because when you're driving a barge, you're carrying a lot of cargo. And the role that you're in now, you've got to get used to carrying a lot of cargo. And you just can't turn around in a river anymore. I was like, whoa. I'm used to being a speedboat. Okay. Quick, fast, acceleration, deceleration, turning, obstacle avoided. Barge. Well, make a mistake driving a barge is catastrophic.
Yep. That'll tighten you. Like anybody listening to that, hearing that, it's like, whew. Now it puts it all in perspective. It's like, man, driving the barge is harder. Like, it's easy to be the speedboat, just like you said, because I'm
Yep.
hearing this and I'm listening to it like, all right, if I was a strength coach that's reporting to you, and I'm like, come on, like, hey coach, we just got to change this, like and it's like, you need to step back and get out of that weight room and get that detachment to see, like, okay, yeah, maybe weather permitting, you have to go from inside to or outside to inside and communicate with the ATs and make sure everything's copacetic. But when you have to see all of the legality and the heaviness that is, like, makes you realize driving the barge isn't as easy as you think.
It's not. Make a mistake driving a speedboat, you probably just do yourself in. You make a mistake driving a barge, you're going to hurt a lot of people.
Economies are going to be hurting because you don't have the ability to bring over what you're trying to bring over. Not to mention the fact anybody in the ocean with you.
Yes.
Wow.
Not to mention the cargo that you're carrying can't get to the destination.
How long ago did you hear that? Man.
That was probably 10 years ago.
Like, how did that change you then? 10 years ago, so 2014, Coach Ivey. How did that then transition to where you are now? Like, help you and guide you?
Well, it made me realize, okay, what are you driving? And in each situation, what are you driving? If you're driving a speedboat, you just have to know, okay, I can make this decision this quick, and I can pivot. But if it's something that a lot of people are depending on, and it's going to impact and affect a lot of people or processes or systems, then I have to be a lot more methodical, more patient and persistent. So where in the past, if it was something I could knock out in a day, and I'll tell you, how much time did I put into writing or sending an email when I was a strength coach? I typed it. I might have somebody else look at it like, hey, this doesn't come across too crazy, does it? No, maybe change this, change that. All right, cool. Boom, send, gone. My first administrative job, it took me all day to write an email. All day. Because what was in there was going to have ripple effects beyond my department. And I needed to get all of the people that would be impacted. I needed their feedback. I need to give them a heads up. I needed to know as much information as I could before I sent the email. And I couldn't believe that it took me that long. I remember really, like, it's now 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I've been working on this since I got to work this morning. And because the emails I had to send, the phone calls and text messages, I needed responses back from, like, I was driving a barge. And I'll never forget that. Like, wow. If it took me a day to write an email when I was a strength and conditioning coach. Yeah.
That's very interesting, and I hope our listeners out there like that definitely changed for me, because I feel like, all right, at first with Strength Coach Network, when I took over a year ago, I felt like I was driving a speedboat, but now it's like as there's more and more severity, and like I've caught myself like writing an email, or I said to my wife, I was like, man, like I have to make sure I've made a conscious effort since taking over for the prior ownership to like be more respectful and like the things that I say. And I was like, Megan, like I gotta, not that I was gonna be, but like I have that barge mentality a little bit more. And I hope any of our listeners out there that are climate, like I'm definitely gonna steal that analogy from now on.
Yeah, please do. Please do. It's helped me out a lot. It's because you're used to moving and shaking, and you do have to make those decisions and think on your feet and be quick, and you can afford to make some mistakes. Those mistakes aren't as catastrophic in those positions I've had earlier in my career. The later in my career, I literally have something that I've been working on to roll out, and the timeline started on fall of 2020. When I go back and look each semester of the steps of something I'm ready to roll out this semester started in fall of 2020.
Wow.
Because it's that big of a barge.
Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Vitruve VBT. With Vitruve, you can accurately measure what speeds your athletes are moving the bar. No longer do you have to program simply based on sets and reps. You can program for your more mature athletes based on the velocities that they are hitting. You can accurately measure at a great price with Vitruve, and you can have this integrate with your TeamBuildr, making it simple so you no longer have to write down the recorded reps from other devices. Everything in one place with Vitruve VBT. Check them out in the link down below.
Huh. Pivoting a little bit, but I think the topic is still very big and bargish, is you're still in the world of NIL, being at Louisville, and I'm not here to talk about how money gets spent. This is a simple question based on a strength coach talked to me about like the possible idea of athletes getting money and it being almost like a vested retirement account. Like, hey, to try to do what's best for these athletes, because what he and I were talking about is the fact that from the book Slight Edge, if you give somebody that doesn't understand finances more money, that's not going to necessarily help them. But if you actually can educate people, and we both know, you just said 10 years ago you didn't know about the speedboat and the barge. If there's a way, and obviously I don't think you and I have the ability to change any of this, but hypothetically, like, is it a way to, vest the funds with the athletes? And obviously if they have to pay for X, Y, and Z, but what's a way that us strength coaches can do right by these kids with any NLI stuff? Or how do we best live in this world? Because we have listeners that are in that world.
Yes. We have to become more educated. Like if we want to connect with our athletes on issues that they're dealing with, it's just like social media. Well, when social media came out, it didn't just come out for students and student athletes. It came out for all of us. Like we were all learning social media at the same time. We can take the approach that, okay, I'm not going to do the social media, and then your athletes are going to do the social media, and then you'll find yourself behind, and then you're relying on other people to get you information that you could be getting yourself if you were engaged in social media. I think of it the same way with NIL. Now, name, image, and likeness. So there's two challenges, two major challenges that I see with NIL and strength conditioning. It is countercultural to the culture of strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Now it's going to be about your name, your image, and your likeness. And as a profession, you get frowned upon by your peers if you are someone that is out there too far in the NIL space, the branding, the marketing, the social media. We've heard those comments from people that aren't necessarily in it. Since I stopped coaching, I've really explored these opportunities. And so I don't have those restrictions and that the culture of strength and conditioning puts on us as professionals. So on one hand, you having your own website, you having your own marketing, media, products potentially that you develop, maybe a patent on something, because we got some really brilliant strength and conditioning coaches, and you promoting that is frowned upon. But at the same time, you want to talk to your athletes and be able to have conversations about their name, image, and likeness. When it comes to finances, many times that's something you don't share with your athletes. But now, how are we going to engage conversations with our athletes about finances? Like, are we going to talk about our investments? Like, are we going to share that? Because we want them to learn from us. They learn from us in almost every other aspect. But yet in this NIL space, we might have to accept that we might be learning from them. We have to accept that with name, image, and likeness and branding and marketing is something we have not necessarily engaged in. And now we're going to potentially be advising someone in that space. We're going to talk to them about their finances when that's not something we've shared with them openly. Now, I'll tell you, I had young strength coach Derek Leger on staff. He was really into day trading. And we had a program where he presented to all of our student athletes on day trading. And we had athletes stopping by the office after their lifts and just learning about trading on the stock market from the strength and conditioning coach. Now, he's in position to be able to talk to them about finances and investments because he lives in that space. That was his part of his hobby. I think if we don't continue to learn and grow and adapt, how are we going to have these conversations with our athletes? So I don't know how close that comes to answering your question. Those are just some challenges I see with NIL. I would like to think that we're now talking to young business people, and we better increase our business acumen if we're going to have business conversations. Why would they ever respect us as a strength coach and we don't know anything about strength and conditioning? It'd be really hard for them to respect us to talk about NIL, finances, money, when we don't have that competency. So if we want to, we better be doing investments and learning how to understand if you're at a private, that you probably have a 401k, and if you're at a public, you got 403b and a 457. And what are you doing to maximize your retirement and your benefits? And when do you become vested? How long is the vesting process? My wife's a personal finance professor, so I'm always in school learning about this. Yeah.
So
Does
you
that
have
answer your question?
no, it does. And you have a good person to go learn from. Like,
Yeah.
And it's something that we've talked about at Strength Coach Network, the importance of understanding your finances, because like you said, kids are going to want to know about it, but also we have to be we love this, but you also have to earn a salary to be able to take care of your family and be able to provide, so that we have food, shelter, home, all of the
Yeah.
things. Like I feel like there is that stigma in our field where people still just don't want to talk about it. When I said off air that I was talking with Bob on the phone, he was like, if he's like, Justin, if coaches would be able to share this information, it raises the bottom, which raises the top. It helps everybody out.
Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Sleepme. Sleepme are the makers of the Chilipad, which has been my bed cooling device since 2020. Chilipad will allow you to sleep and not wake up hot anymore. This was something that I had to worry about. I used to have the air conditioning down way too low. Now, I don't have to have the air conditioning as low because my Chilipad, my Dock Pro, keeps my bed cold at night. Check out Sleepme, check out the Chilipad, check out the Dock Pro in the link down below.
Yeah, I agree with that. Something I did with we did as a staff is we did the Dave Ramsey's course as a staff, which was really cool. So even if you were single, um, young on staff, we didn't care. We knew it cost money. We pulled our money together to make sure we took care of our younger staff so that they could attend this. And then I think there were 4 couples in there, 4 of us that were couples on staff, and so we're in there with our spouses, and man, I think we did that for 8 weeks, maybe. It was like
Oh, wow.
once a week for 8 weeks, the full course. And I remember one of our strength coaches, Ryan Jackson. I wanted him to. We were in Missouri together, and then he ended up going to Tulsa. I
Yep.
got the head job at Arkansas State, and then I was like, "Hey, you know, I think I know what you're getting paid, and I probably can't pay you that, but I want you to come down and I want you to help me run this program, in this department." And he said, "I can do it because I can afford to do it as a young professional." He said the course, he was applying everything that we did from the Dave Ramsey course,
Oh, word.
and he had paid off all of his debt. He was debt free in his mid 20s, late 20s, mid 20s probably, debt free, and came and helped me to run the program. So I think about the ripple effects. Like, I really needed him there because my family was still in Missouri, so I was commuting back and forth. Like, I really needed somebody to do. I made up a title, like, you're going to be the director of athletic performance operations. Like, it was like, what does that mean? You're going to make it operate like that. You figure, you run staff meetings, you order equipment, you make sure the food, you do everything. Like, you're running this. Um, and he grew tremendously. But I think about, if he had to make a decision solely based off of finances, he wouldn't have gotten that experience.
No, RJ's. That's interesting you say that, because I just visited RJ and the TCU staff down in June, and yeah, that's awesome that you guys did something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Huh.
yeah.
And so something else that I've talked about, and I am in no way, shape, or form, and I've said this in the blogs and on different podcasts, I am not the end all be all. I am simply sharing my opinion and in the greater pursuit of trying to make strength and conditioning better, the best, and help this profession as a whole. Does the title strength coach you talked about, like, does it matter? Is it minutia? Like, what are things that we should be focusing on to unite all of us and ultimately push the field forward, so we're making more money, we're having a better impact, and doing our jobs better? Like, does that matter, or is it just, small potatoes?
I don't Personally, I don't think it matters. Sports performance, strength conditioning, athletic performance, it's still weights and running. Like, and I don't mean to demean or you know come across as condescending, but we have to get bigger, faster, stronger, quicker, more resilient to injury. Like, we have weight rooms. That's where we operate. We have fields and courts where we need to do movement and conditioning and plyometrics and agilities and all those things. Like, I don't think it matters. Here's what I think matters more than all of that: how you communicate verbally, written, and body language, how you present yourself in meetings. Research has shown that more promotions happen because of your conduct in meetings rather than the job that you were hired to do. Professionalism and your character trump any amount of books or certifications or knowledge that you may have in strength and conditioning. We promoted a person here on staff, and they work in sports medicine. And when there was one opportunity to promote one person because of the work that was done by this person in meetings, leadership development institutes, so many other opportunities this person had to interact with others in the athletics department, they got the promotion. And we got 2 floors of administration. And I think just about everyone on these 2 floors knows that person's name. I don't know if they know what that person does. And a lot of times we're trying to advance just by focusing on how do we use our watch and whistle better, or how do we program better, when the reality is we can say good morning better. We can say have a good day better. We can say how are you doing better. We can say how's your family doing better. We can show up to meetings on time and professional and taking notes and contributing better. We can look for other opportunities to help people outside of our departments better. I think that's way more impactful if we want to advance the profession than going to get another certification. And I'm not devaluing learning or education. But to think that I got here at 4:30 in the morning, 5 in the morning, and I didn't leave till 6:37, and I put in 70, 80, 90 hours a week, and that's what's going to help me to advance, I challenge that and say, if you're a jerk or a-hole and you're disrespectful and you're unkind and your character is flawed, then eventually it's going to catch up to you, or people are going to realize it and you'll get passed up and someone else will get the promotion and the salary increase.
That makes a ton of sense. And I mean, you've been clearly you've been able to do that as you've navigated these waters for quite a while.
Yeah, I've had some really good people on staff. I've been around some amazing coaches.
Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Powerlift. Powerlift is located here in Iowa in the United States of America. I've utilized them back in 2011 when I had them at Harvard. I also had them at the University of Maryland, and then finally when I was at the University of Iowa. Their equipment is strong, it is durable, it is dependable. It's also customizable based upon whatever your needs are at your school. Check out Powerlift at the link down below.
People that cared about me and what we were trying to do, and some amazing athletic directors that have poured into me and others around me, and helped to create this wonderful, growing environment that fostered this collaboration and learning and growth. When I went back to school to get my doctorate, I had a head football coach. When I went to tell him I was going to be missing Tuesday practices in season to go to class, his response was, "Well, you've got a good staff. We'll be fine."
That's awesome.
It's like that sort of support is what I've had, and I think you don't have a story like mine without the mutual respect between professionals.
Where one of the last questions here to respect your time is at what point does the pendulum swing too far and strength and conditioning coaches we're too obsessed with what data and technology tells us, and then we're trying to tell a coach what to do, versus at what point does the coach not get to make their own decisions about the team based on the feel and the art of coaching?
I just had this conversation with our women's soccer coach last week here, and just sharing with her that I probably could do a better job of helping the people that are working with her team and other coaches on how to interact with head coaches, because of the amount of head coaches I've had to interact with for over 20, almost 30 years, as a professional. And the conversation went in a really good direction. And I shared with her when I worked with Coach Gary Pinkel at Missouri. He was the head football coach. And we had some data, and we were doing catapult and wanted to go and talk to him about player load and how much work we were doing in intensities. And Brian Mann had done some research and looked at standard deviations of all kinds of stuff. And went to Coach, like, "Coach, I need to meet with you. Want to just talk to you about maybe there's some areas we can look to maybe dial it back a little bit, and guys' legs a little bit tired." And he looked at me. He's like, "So what you're telling me is they need to do what you've been teaching them." And I'm going, "So you're saying they need to hydrate more? So you're saying they need to get more rest? So you're saying they need to get in cold tubs, eat their fruits and vegetables, do more stretching, get with the massage therapist, you do the yoga. So you're saying they need to do more of that stuff, is what you're telling me?" Like, "Yes, Coach, that's what I'm saying." And he said, "Well, good, we can get that message to him." He said, "And yeah, you tell him, and I'll reinforce it." I said, "Yes, Coach, we will." Yeah, recovery. He said, "Yeah, they need to do a better job of recovering and using all those recovery boots and all those other things you got down there that we bought, right?" Like, "Yes, Coach, absolutely." You know what? That's what's missing. Yep. Last time I went to a coach with data and without realizing and understanding, because any coach that could recite all of that back was knowledgeable and was like, "I'm going to push them because you all that other stuff we got, all the other stuff, all the stretching, we do stretching before practice, after practice. Yeah, that's what they need to be doing." So I would tell the younger professional that your coaches are smart. Have a conversation with them, develop some trust, have a lot of education and conversations back and forth. That just proved that Coach Pinkel was paying attention. It just proved, like, if a head coach can name off 10 different recovery modalities and techniques off the top of their head, man, that's pretty good. Like, you've won. So at that point, I never went back to him talking about player lows or anything like that. It was just like, "Hey, Coach, we need to tell the guys to hydrate more. We done urine specific gravity testing, and we got too many that are in the red. It was like, oh yeah, we'll get on them, because if they come out here and cramp or pull a hamstring, I'm gonna be pissed off. Like, yeah, coach, got you, got you.
That's a fantastic point to end this episode, to respect your time with everything you have going on. Coach, I greatly appreciate the opportunity to share and learn from you this last hour.
Yeah, Justin, this has been great. I love talking shop. I would like to do it even more. So maybe there's a chance we can do a part 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever it takes. I appreciate what you're doing. Respect what you're doing. What you're doing is important, and I hope people will really show you that appreciation.
Appreciate that, Coach, and
Yeah,
I would be honored to continue this conversation. Have a good rest of
absolutely.
your day.
All right, you too.
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.